I think a sequel only needs to rely on its original material a little bit. It needs to equally be distributed, but I don't think those same rules apply to Beetlejuice.
Right, and I appreciate that it didn't try to like upend the formula too much. There was no like, Beetlejuice has been made into a human again, and we gotta send him back to the afterlife, or something weird like that. Welcome back to the break room. Hey, the juice is loose, babe. Beetlejuice is out just in time for Halloween. But does this legacy sequel work? And does it even matter if it works? It's the Breakroom movie review.
Oh, that's so cute. The letters are weird. That's so cute.
That is cute.
It was done on purpose, right?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
It was done on purpose. What if it wasn't done on purpose and you just called out the crew?
Well, get your eyes checked.
Oh my gosh. I'm Brandon Barrick, and joining me today, we have the ghost with the most. It's Jessica Clemons.
Ooh, that's my ghost sound.
And also, what's that crawling around in the sands of a moon of Jupiter? No, Saturn?
Saturn.
Dang.
Yeah.
What's that crawling around in the sands of a moon of Saturn? It's Evan Yee!
Lisa Nagaib.
Oh, Lisa Nagaib.
That's so funny that they were straight up pulling from Dune.
No.
When the sand did the thing, I was like, come on, that's Dude. Come on.
You know Tim Burton was like, fuck them. He's like, I started.
Listen, so many movies are inspired by the book Dune.
That is true.
You know, you can't knock it. You can't
It's
knock
also,
it.
and, well, yeah. Well, didn't Beetlejuice also say that like the sandworms were based off of like Tremors? But then it's also like there's a lot of sandworms and
Tim Burton probably as a child being like, I don't want to go in the sandbox, mommy.
Mommy, please. That man will be like, I have fears of everything. Let me recreate it for myself.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about Beetlejuice. Of course, don't forget to check out Jessica's breakdown of the movie right now on the new Rockstars channel. Even if you watch it already, go leave a comment. Go like it. Go write any words you want 3 times. Only nice words.
Only nice words.
Write them 3 times.
Yeah.
Booty hole, booty hole, booty hole.
That's a nice word.
That'd be my name if I was Beetlejuice.
I do wonder if booty hole is a flagged word.
Oh, let's find out. Try it out in the comments.
Do not say it in the comments of my video. Go to someone else.
Let's test the algorithm, folks.
You can write it on this one. You can write it on this one. It's fine.
Get a couple booty holes down there.
Hey, gotta get a couple booty holes in chat.
Hey.
Booty holes for Beetlejuice.
This is a serious movie, folks. Booty holes for Beetlejuice.
Booty holes for Beetlejuice. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Beetlejuice, it's out. A few decades after the original, I would say. The original came out in 1988. You do the math at home. I'm not a genius.
10, 22, almost 30.
Almost 30 years after the original movie. How did everyone feel about this sequel after such a long time since the iconic original film? Now, in that time there was an animated series in the 90s. There's been a very successful musical that's now touring the nation.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about this sequel now? Did it live up to your expectations? Did it leave you wanting more? How do you feel about it?
I think as a person that enjoys movies, I loved it. I loved it a lot. I think it's very fun. I can't recommend seeing it enough. I think there's its own critiques as like a critiquer and reviewer that's separate from me liking the movie. But I don't want my critiques and my reviews of like the structure of the film to ever even come close to like recommending to watch the movie, because I really like the movie, and I think everyone else would also enjoy the movie sans my critique.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same exact way. I think like we're saying it in the pre-show chat, but like it is something that you do want to see in theaters, and you should
with a crowd
watch it
laughing, having a good time.
Yeah. I mean, we say that a lot here on the show, but it is true. And I think this movie, especially, there's so much love I think put into like all the design and revisiting this cast of characters in like live action film so many years later. I'm interested, and I'm very interested to talk to both of you about it. Yeah, because I don't have much of a relationship with the original film.
Right.
The first time I saw it was I was putting it on for a group of summer camp kids.
Okay.
Who were all like 12 and 14, and
Okay,
like
maybe
the,
inappropriate for a bunch of summer camp kids.
Yeah,
but that's fine. That's fine.
They handed it to me. They said, "Put this on for the kids." I said,
But that's the best way, I think, as a young person to see the first Beetlejuice is like you're
Yeah.
a little too young to see it, maybe, and it's kind of giving you some ideas.
I think it was also like that, depending on who you were, it was appropriate or inappropriate. 'Cause my family didn't find it inappropriate, but I understand why other families might find it inappropriate.
Sure.
I was also like, I mean, in '88 we were watching some crazy things.
Yeah.
I like I was born then. Remember '88, Evan? How nice it was.
Yeah, those were the days.
when they announced, hey, those were the days.
I know.
I don't know. I was
My
born in
bad.
2002.
My bad.
When they announced that they were doing this movie, I was like, come on, really? But then when it was like Tim Burton's gonna be involved and direct the movie, when so much of the original cast was coming back, I was like, okay, I feel I'm into it. And then seeing, you know, I love all the practical effects in this movie, the practical makeup that was done, all that stuff was great. And like, this is not a perfect movie by any means, but what a fun mainstream comedy, not rated R, that you can go see in a movie theater that doesn't get done anymore. And it feels like an old school kind of mid-budget comedy that is doing very well at the box office. And I wish there was more of these happening. And it feels like a movie that doesn't get made anymore. And it's very weird and very subversive and strange.
It doesn't follow in the same footsteps. I'm just saying, like, for today's age of movies, it reminds me of a lot of like how Bottoms is. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really great gay film. And I'm like, I wish they made lesbian pieces that weren't period pieces like this. Like, I'm so tired of seeing lesbian period pieces. And I was like, this is great. I was like, this is camp, this is fun, this is like realistic, and it was probably not that much money. And then I'm like, this is also really great, ahead of its time for like practicals. And when I say ahead of its time for practicals, I mean, when we get practicals now, it's like so serious. I'm like, give me that silly craziness.
Yeah, this is weird.
We haven't gotten that in a really long time. And I was opposite of you, I'm so against sequels for things that have so much heart. And the first one had so much heart, I was like, don't touch it. There's a lot of films where I'm like, inevitably there will be a sequel and I'll be like, please don't touch this movie. Like, I just wanted it to stay as it was. And I think this is the only movie, in my opinion, that I've been like okay with the sequel of it. And when I say that, I mean like it still has that heart, it's still fun, it's still camp, it actually exceeded the campiness for me. Whereas I'm like, other sequels I've been just like, you kind of flopped. You kind of flopped on this one.
Like it's something, you know, I kind of feel that way about like the newer Ghostbusters movies, where it's like they're great on their own, you know, no knock to them, but like trying to reclaim some of the originals, it's like, I feel that way very much about Back to the Future, where Zemeckis has been very much like, we're not going back to this.
If they touch that, I would strangle.
But you know, one day they're gonna remake it. And that's fine, but like, don't try and continue the story you've already told. Start all over. I don't know. But yeah, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this movie and had a lot of fun with it. You know, originally they tried to do a sequel to the first Beetlejuice right after it came out, and like thankfully it didn't work, and like they couldn't get the schedules right, and then they were off doing Batman, and then those sequels took precedent. So it kind of all fell apart. And there, you know, you can read the Wikipedia on it. Like there was a script like Beetlejuice goes to Hawaii or something like that. They had all these weird ideas.
Which I think could actually be kind of fun.
Sure.
I think it would have been great for the TV show.
And this movie does feel like 4 or 5 different movies that they cut parts out of, and they like this and they like that, and they put it all together. But let's talk about the movie. Let's get into it, right?
I want to talk about it. I just want to add on to that last part that the reason it also didn't come out as a sequel immediately is because Beetlejuice, like Hocus Pocus, like the other ones, was not a hit. It wasn't good. It didn't. It's one of those cult classics that got us over time.
Lived on by the video store.
And so if it wasn't honestly for this generation, and when I say this generation, I mean more so millennials. If it wasn't for them rekindling this love for it, that's how we got Hocus Pocus 2, and that's how we got Beetlejuice. We need those people that are going back watching those old properties to recreate it and bring that love to everything. So that is also why I'm like, great time to have a sequel 30 years after instead of having it after. It wouldn't have done well.
And also, I feel like watching the movie was like, exactly what you're talking about, of like a PG-13 like horror comedy, comedy horror, whatever, however you want to like phrase it. But like, it did feel like, this is like the exact right, like same level of tone that first one hit, where it's like, this is like, can be for kids, a little creepy for kids, but also just like very fun, very funny, very odd, and it's just like, you feel like you're just like watching something like so bizarre. You know?
Very strange and very like, it had an old school Tim Burton feel that I haven't seen in his movies in a while. So yeah, we'll get into it. Again, spoiler warning. We're gonna talk about the movie and everything that happens. You've been warned. We'll start talking about the characters, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these characters we knew already. A lot of new characters were introduced. Who do you think like really stood out the most in this film of all the characters? You know, who had the best arc? Who shined for you? You can. Beetlejuice wins. Hands down. I'll say that. Like, Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice is just, and I think you pointed this out, Jessica. Like the little amount they use him in this movie, very similar to the first movie, where there's not a ton of screen time for our main guy, right? It's not like the whole movie is just following Beetlejuice.
I didn't say that.
I thought you said that when we were talking earlier.
I think you said it, but I agree with. I agree with it regardless. I just don't want to take.
It's almost like you would think in a Beetlejuice movie it would be following him the whole time. It doesn't. And like not that much screen time.
Yeah, I also think it's because he doesn't really officially come in until halfway through the movie. We see glimpses of him at the call center. We even get that story, but he does not come in contact with that family, like conversing, until the middle of the movie. Going to your original question of who I'm choosing, I don't know if this. I'm not saying this person had the greatest arc. It just surprised me, and that's Justin Theroux's character as Rory.
So good.
I was not expecting that, especially after seeing him mainly in only serious roles. I just didn't expect that man to have good comedic timing. I don't think he had like the greatest arc at all, but I genuinely was so surprised by his efforts in the movie.
He was going very hard. He was a joy. I mean,
so fun.
The second, right at the beginning when he's in the bathroom with Lydia and lets her take a pill and then takes one himself, I was like, okay, I'm in for this guy.
Also, he's like, this is the last time I'm gonna take a dig
or he dumps
the
the garbage and then immediately pulls them out. I was like, this guy is fun. He's a mustache twirling villain. Like,
he is.
Villain from the start. Not a surprise, but like it's kind of great.
It's good. Instead of the mustache, it's that ponytail.
Yes. Oh, the little ponytail. It's just such a.
What did he say in the car? He was like, my grandfather died. Oh my God, when? 40 years.
40 years.
And he kept bringing it up.
Plus, I'm getting it. This is my third tragedy.
You remember my grandfather dying?
My standout was Willem DaFoe, man. Willem DaFoe just went so hard in this.
Yeah.
And again, like his character, you there's a version of the script where like he was the main story driver, right? Where it was like the whole movie was him figuring out this crime, but him just playing this actor who's now the cop of the underworld and is like constantly being handed coffee and crushing it and like all the line. What was the line he had? The
gotta keep it real.
Gotta keep it real.
Gotta keep it real.
Just so good. Like
every coffee. There was those little jokes, that I'm like, I know they wrote this in the script like a million times. Just a little crush coffee. Crush coffee. Gotta keep it real.
And like
Wait, should we do it for the thumbnail?
Yeah.
Everybody to your respective camera. All right. Gotta keep it real.
Gotta keep it real.
Incredible. Brian, you got it? Great.
Brian just walked into the studio.
And just like the effect, the makeup on his face.
Yeah.
Like, and you can infer that he does his own stunts, so he got killed doing one of his own stunts. Just great. I loved that.
I mean, it's also like I had wished with his character, like having been an actor in real life, and then or like in the world of the movie, he was an actor. That the characters would have maybe recognized him from that. Like the human characters would be like, "Oh, you're the guy from Gotta Keep It Real," or whatever, right? He even at the end, he's like, "You can take your selfies now," and then they're like, "What?"
Honestly, even funnier that they don't know who he is.
That's a better point.
There's also not to be this person.
That's great.
The only person I know that I watch, still to this day, I will watch his things that I know that does his own stunts is just Tom Cruise. So I'm like, unless this man is Tom Cruise, I'm not gonna know who the person is. I don't know many actors that do their own stunts.
Yeah.
Unless they just know him as the guy that died from a live grenade on set because he had to do his own stunts.
Oh my God.
That's so funny. What's your favorite character? Is it Willem Dafoe?
No, I think it would probably be, and then we're talking a little bit about this off screen, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts now. I actually did really like Winona Ryder in this movie.
Okay.
I do think maybe not the best performance of her career, whatever. I do think it's very interesting to be an adult woman that has to revisit this role that you did as like a young kid, and like both for your real life and for the character's life, how much time has like passed, and how do you still keep that spirit of the character alive? Right, like Daphne Keane recently when she played X-23 in Deadpool Wolverine. Spoilers, sorry. She was like, as soon as I put on the the clothes, I felt like her again. I was like, is that real? I mean, I believe you, but really, you were such a little kid. But also in that same time, right? Like how revisiting that, and also like the trauma too, trauma of like also like having to deal with Beetlejuice, like as you know, that person.
I think Winona's talked about in interviews, you know, she approached the character as like, yeah, Lydia has been seeing dead people her whole life.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they threw in the twist that, you know, her ex-husband had died, but she can't see him, and her daughter resents her for it, and like all that. This person would be like a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I think that's a very hard role to play, especially when you're surrounded by Justin Theroux just going hard, Catherine O'Hara going so hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you play this quiet girl who's grown up and has like been exploited for her talent?
I don't fault or reward that completely on Winona Ryder. That is also Tim Burton.
Yeah,
because I was like, that's Tim Burton's direction. And I think he was like, I want you to be as silly as you can with traumatic behavior. The movie's still whimsy, so even the trauma of like, yeah, as a teen, I was gonna be forced into marriage with a demon, can't come across as Rosemary's Baby.
Right.
So I think they were like, let's make this as kooky as we can. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I liked Lydia itself. I also love that Lydia has the same exact hairstyle after 30 years.
I know. She's like, I gotta lean into this now. Yeah.
They cut that into the freaking like Lisa
really
Simpson like triangles.
Dude, Catherine O'Hara's character, I forgot how like big of a character she was in the first movie. Yeah. And then it was like when I was watching her breakdown, I was like, oh yeah, she was doing this stuff in the movie. It makes sense that she like went bigger.
I literally was like, and Catherine O'Hara is such a great actress. She doesn't have to play Moira Rose.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, her character is Moira Rose. I was like, we were watching it, and they were like, this is basically Moira Rose, and I was like, but she is Moira Rose. I was like, Delia has always been Moira Rose. She was just younger and didn't look like Moira Rose. But I was like, yeah, this makes complete sense. I was like, of course she's gonna be this. And then I love the I will say, I'll give them this. I like the modern take they took to everything. They were like, in 30 years, is she still doing sculptures? No, she's diversifying her like outlet, and she's going to everything. Even with like, and I mentioned this in the breakdown. Instead of getting the infomercial like Beetlejuice ad on the old TV, it's now going through your phone. And I'm like,
pop-ups on your phone.
More people are not just dying from like a shark attack or dying in a sleeping bag or being burned alive. They're dying from protesting. Like they were trying to be like, in 30 years, how has life changed?
Right.
And they're actively doing it. And I'll give them that in that movie. I like that a lot.
And I do appreciate that the film, it never got like saccharine with any of it.
What do you define saccharine?
Like it never got too sweet or sappy with anything. It was like it's still approached.
I wish they would have played into it. I wish it would have been. They went over it so
I don't know. I kind of appreciate that it was like there was so much death for all the characters in the movie. Like they'd all been so close to death, but it was like, you know, my dad fell off a boat and was eaten by piranhas. Like that's an insane way to die. Yeah. And it's not like, oh, my dad died slowly of cancer. Can I talk to him in the afterlife? No, it was like this weird thing. And everyone you meet in the afterlife has some intense death thing. Like, I was locked into a box of water, you know? Like,
you know what I just realized? I was like, there was that heart in the first one because our voice of reason characters, improv, they call it the problematic word of straight man, but our voice of reason characters were the Maitlands, and they were so sad.
Yeah, they were die in a car accident, right?
And also, they just didn't want to hurt Lydia. They were like, we don't want this. We just want our house back. And it was like, oh, that was the touching part, was them coming together and being like, we can just coexist in this house. This does not have a voice of reason character. Yeah. This does not have
Jenna Ortega, maybe a little
bit. Because she's even silly.
And that's why I wanted to talk about the characters too. And there's so many other things to talk about the movie as well. But like this is like why I brought this up. I think a criticism of this movie is that there's so many characters that are so interesting. There's more that we haven't even touched on that are like they're so interesting, and they each have their own story that it does feel a little messy overall when you watch the movie. You're like, wait, what is going, like, does this person need to be here? Does this need to affect this? Does it need to affect that? At the same time, I don't necessarily want to lose any of their presences, like, but maybe they didn't have to have like fully fleshed out stories, you know?
It did feel like a series of sketches set in the Beetlejuice universe, right? So much so that even like, you know, Ghost Killer Boyfriend, right? Yeah. He's just dumped down immediately, and you're like, we haven't even gotten to the third act of this movie yet. Like, what's happening?
It was so, and that's
the Monica Bellucci's just
we have a picture of her too. This is one of my favorite, like that sequence. I mean, you highlighted in the breakdown too, but when she's putting herself back together, she's the staples and like how it looks. I like that. That's that meme where you're like sitting down. and you said straight up, you're like, I'm locked in.
It's the Bee Gees tragedy specifically
Yeah.
playing for it that I'm like, yeah, she's a beautiful, hot, horrible monster woman.
Yeah.
But even that, the Monica Bellucci stuff was like short-lived. I like, it's so interesting that it's like, yeah, I have these critiques, but I don't care about them because it's Beetlejuice.
I really don't.
Yeah.
And I will say that's the difference that it has that other movies don't have. If Bottoms did a sequel, I keep using Bottoms as an example, I'm sorry. But if Bottoms did a sequel, I wouldn't expect them to, I'm like, do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different. Beetlejuice is so whimsical, it's so fun. Even, actually, I'll say, even with like Wonka, I was like, they can do whatever the hell they want. Because it's just a whimsy world. I was like, this is a whimsy world of fun.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, it's weird. It kind of, if it was more structured like the way I want it, would it still be as fun? Would it have still been as great to give everyone that full arc? That would have been an extra hour on that movie.
Yeah, I don't
And
want
then-
everyone having like.
And
a
I
full
don't want
arc.
them to
Yeah,
have a
that's
full
good
arc.
point.
But it was also, and there's a lot of hands in the pot when they're writing. They have 2 writers, and then Tim Burton's also kind of writing on it. And it's not that easy to not to give them this, but like devil's advocate. They basically put Jeremy, the ghost boyfriend, in there as a justification to put her in the afterlife.
Sure.
To put Astrid into the afterlife, right? He was not needed other than that. There was no reason he was in that. But I was like, it's also, I'm not writing the goddamn movie. Like, it's not that easy to be like, how would Astrid get to the afterlife? Oh, let's give her a boy to be in love with, which is what happens in Wednesday 2. Spoilers.
It did. I mean, it feels like an old school Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, it is.
Edward Scissorhands is like a kind of a mess and like weird. And there's a story I saw recently. I don't know how true it is, but apparently like Tom Cruise was approached for Edward Scissorhands or something as a young actor.
I did see that.
And like one of his big things was like, I don't understand how this character goes to the bathroom, right? And it's like, okay, fair, Tom. How does Edward Scissorhands manipulate his penis so he can go to the bathroom? I don't know.
Piss my pants?
But it's also like he's a Frankenstein's monster character
That
who was created by a doll maker on a hill. Like it's a weird world, right? And I don't need everything in Beetlejuice to make
Makes sense. That's a sure ticket to get your ass off Tim Burton's
Hell
set.
yeah,
Tim Burton loved working with Michael Keaton because Michael Keaton was like, well, if he's underground for a long time, wouldn't he have mold on his head? And he's like, yes! That's what I want. Don't ask questions. Don't ask how he shits. Does he have a butthole? Buttholes for booty holes for
Booty holes for Beetlejuice.
I almost said for Beetlejuice.
And like I like that even when this movie teased that they were gonna tell you the backstory of Beetlejuice, it's this insane thing.
Yeah.
And that's not even, Beetlejuice, Keaton has talked about the character as like he's a demon that's sometimes on Earth for a while, sometimes not on Earth for a while. Like I don't think he was ever a human at any point, right? He's just this creature.
He did say in the first one that he lived through the plague, so but I guess a demon could also live through the plague.
Yeah, he's lived through everything. Yeah, he just lives.
We have that clip which we can watch. I also want to say Berg from New Rockstars is in the chat saying Beetlejuice had unhinged Gremlins 2 energy.
Yeah.
It was.
Yes.
I keep mentioning that, and no one knows what I'm talking about because no one's seen Gremlins. The Gremlins' dad that went through the chimney and died. I was like, he got a Gremlins death in the movie. Thank you, Berg. Everyone's like, what do you mean by Gremlins death? And I'm like, that's how the girl's dad died in the movie.
Yeah.
It was an intense scene where she was like, my dad died coming down the chimney for Christmas. Okay.
All right, so if you're on the fence about watching the movie, I'm so glad, Jessica, you told me that this clip was out because this is easily one of my favorite parts.
It was out before the movie came out, which is insane to do.
One of my favorite parts of the movie, so I mean, it will be spoiled for you here, but we'll play it right now. This is great, yeah.
Yeah.
His nails, I never noticed how sharp they are.
Oh yeah.
My ex-wife is back. My ex-wife is back. I know what you're thinking. When was the juice ever cut?
Michael Keaton, insane.
Him satisfied. Well. She's pissed.
Just great. Just
So
great.
good.
So weird.
Good. So, even that is very Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah.
Not the same at all. But that level of seriousness that's kind of kooky. Remember Addams Family Values, where she's like, we're not gonna break bread with you. When Wednesday is immediately like telling her the story of what happened to the first people. I love that, and it's so kooky. And the older he gets, the more unhinged he becomes. He's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I can do this. Why not?
Also recently divorced, so he had a lot of that ex-wife energy.
The juice is loose.
The juice is loose.
Also,
he's also dating Monica Bellucci right now, which maybe is why she was in this movie.
Keep the people will be mad at James Gunn forever for his wife being in things. If I am a famous director, right, I'm going to put my loved one in the goddamn movie.
Because also you get to spend more time with them. Like they're there, you know, they don't have to be like, hope your day is, well, it's like, you know.
Also, if they're an actor, Mike Flanagan, that woman is the almost better of an actress than he is as a director. And she is phenomenal. If my partner is already an actor, already doing stuff, I'm like, yeah, come on, baby, come be the sexy woman, the undead woman, the reanimated woman.
Yeah, I did. And again, it feels like she was in one version of the script the main villain of the film, but again, like, was not the most important thing.
Or was she just thrown in there because it's Monica Bellucci?
Maybe.
I genuinely was like, immediately I was like, okay, she wasn't necessary, Willem Dafoe wasn't necessary, Jeremy wasn't necessary, but I do love Willem Dafoe and Monica Bellucci's characters too much to take them out.
I like the expansion they kind of did to the afterlife in this film, but they didn't do too much. It wasn't all in the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
Now, talking about it out loud, I guess those three characters are needed for, and they made mention of this in every interview. Every single character gets an arc. Or not every single one. The priest doesn't, but you know, the main character.
Yeah, he does. He wants to drink, and he drinks.
And he drinks.
That's his arc.
And he says his little one-off lines that are very good.
Yeah.
And he gets to dance and lip sync.
And he gets a confirmation of the afterlife, something all priests would like to have.
That's true.
Yeah. It's so funny because he does he mentions Elysian fields for Charles Dietz, and then I'm like, oh, the Soul Train takes you there.
It's going to Elysian fields.
It's going straight there. But they all get an arc, so it's like, even if it wasn't a justifiable character, you still got to add these characters to give someone else an arc. And it's interesting that they actually chose for all these main characters, their arc had to be fulfilled with another person. Because technically, Delia still had Charles.
Yeah.
Like, that was her arc, was like coming over. She didn't come over anything. She basically died and then was like, oh, I'm with them finally. But they each depended on another character to fulfill their arc.
Yeah, happiness in life is like also happiness in death, I guess. And
beautiful.
There's, and like, if you were to center the film, like, with one person's, like, POV, like, to have someone, like, a central character guide you more through the film, then instead of, like, bouncing back as much as we did, who would you want to, like, be with a little bit more, if you had to choose?
That's a good question. I do think the POV is, which we should take her off of this idea, is Lydia. I think it's mainly Lydia. Lydia's connected to every single person in the movie more than like Astrid or Rory or anyone else is. So no one gets to say Lydia. We have to say a different character. It's interesting. I would actually say Delia. Because Delia is still Delia, and that's all it is. Is like Delia is still Delia. She's still very weird, very kooky, very wild. But I was like, that's it. And that's what she was in the first movie too. But I think she had more time in the first movie, especially with what's the bigger guy's name from the first movie?
Otho.
Otho, yeah. With Otho, she got to like be a pair with in the beginning and explain a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to see more of Delia without her being a Karen or like screaming in the afterlife. Yeah, but I did love it.
It's tough because she is such a big comedic character. It's tough to have that as your main person you're kind of following, right? Because like your main person, you want to have that kind of main person energy, right? Like sort of Jenna Ortega's character where they're skeptical, they don't really believe in the afterlife, and then all of a sudden they're inside of it, and what is that like for them? And her character does get probably one of the more fulfilling arcs.
Yeah, she has like the actual heart.
Yeah, she learns to like accept her mother, accept her father's death, and move forward. Yeah. And they bond over it, and the model makes it onto the show. Isn't that beautiful in the end? Before we get to more about Beetlejuice, let's thank one of our sponsors today, Cook Unity. Folks, I have a lot of fantasies, and one of them is having my own personal chef, Jessica. Somebody who can do all the hard work of menu planning, meal prep, and all that tough stuff. Someday I'll get there, but in the meantime, I've got Cook Unity. What is Cook Unity? You're asking your computer, cell phone, or television right now. Cook Unity is basically a pipeline from your home to dozens of talented chefs that cook delicious, inventive meals, fresh every day in regional micro kitchens, not warehouse production facilities. Their roster of all-star chefs include Food Network's alums, James Beard Awards winners, and acclaimed restaurateurs. Cook Unity is the first chef-to-consumer platform that delivers freshly prepared, pre-selected meals right to your door weekly. The subscription is super flexible. You can pause, skip weeks, or cancel at any time. It's super easy to do. Evan, have you ever used Cook Unity?
I have. through Zach and Berg, and I was so excited to eat all the Cook Unity meals, and Zach took them home.
Whoa.
Zach.
Whoa.
Took them home from the office. But no, they're very good. That's why one day I was like, I don't need a pack lunch because I got a Cook Unity in the fridge.
Jessica, did you get one of these Cook Unity meals?
No, and
I didn't get one either.
And you don't see me
and Evan's complaining about it, but I've had 0 of them. Jeez Louise.
God.
Well,
ungrateful.
Ungrateful.
Ice spice.
if you want your ice spice, then go to cookunity.com/nrockstars50 for 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals to try for yourself at home. Again, go to cookunity.com/nrockstars50 and use code nrockstars50 to get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals. Try it out. Check it out. Get some fresh, delicious, tasty meals delivered right to you. Stop working so hard for your dinner. Okay.
Zach, bring back the meals.
Zach, bring back the meals.
We don't have to work hard for our dinners anymore. We don't
those
have
done
to
been
hunt.
they gone. They gone. If I know one thing about Zach, any food in front of him is gone.
And you know what he did? He put it in the microwave and then put it in a blender and just drank it up.
Drank
That's
it
how
as a
he eats.
smoothie.
That's how he eats his food.
Just like a monster. You know what I mean? We also want to remind you to check out nerdriot.shop. I'm wearing an old school Mephisto shirt.
Ooh.
It was the creepiest shirt I had.
Yeah.
Evan's got on one of the Into the Spider-Verse.
It's like
Across the
walking down
Spider-Verse
the hallways
movies.
of Beetlejuice
That's
world.
right.
It is.
Jessica's just repping the logo.
I'm repping the logo.
She's repping the logo.
It's not the Mephisto shirt.
But we got tons of great stuff at nerdriot.shop. We got a Agatha All Along shirt up right now. Check that out.
We got a Blade shirt.
We got a Blade shirt up there right now. We still have lots of Deadpool and Wolverine merch.
We
on
have
there.
that shirt that's full of Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Still haven't been able to find myself on it.
Can't find Jessica. She's hard to
I kind
spot.
of gave up at this point.
Listen, I'm pitching hard for some Wicked merch. I got tons of great.
What if we just made the hats? The Wicked hat?
Oh.
How would we put new Rockstars on it? I know that's what you're
We can
wondering.
put it on there. No.
Wait. Make a hat, but with the witch hat on the hat.
Oh,
the
I like
logo,
that.
this.
Oh,
a hat with a hat on
there
it.
you go.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
a hat on a hat.
That's really smart, don't you think? I was setting you up. It's
I
okay.
know you
Check it all out, nerdriot.shop. Okay.
My favorite part of Beetlejuice when they did a Wicked.
My favorite part of Beetlejuice is the Wicked trailer that I played before.
That was a good trailer. I love that trailer.
That was a good trailer.
It was
Yeah.
a good trailer.
So this was a sequel, folks. There was a movie first. They waited 30 years, and now there's a sequel. Was it successful? Okay. I don't know. What do you think?
Was it successful?
Was it a successful?
Was it
Is this what you want out of a Beetlejuice
I
sequel?
think it's successful in the box office, which I'm
Sure.
more
Yeah.
successful than they were predicting, which I'm very proud of. I'm very happy that every time I see a Tim Burton movie or a Tim Burton thing, like Wednesday, I was like, I didn't really like it, and then everybody else in the world loves it. So I'm like, oh,
You were happy to like this one.
yeah, I was very happy to like this one. The first time I saw it, I was definitely like, oh, the plot's everywhere. But then I saw it a second time, and I actually had so much more fun the second time.
Yeah.
I think it's a very successful sequel, but I do also think it only works for maybe Beetlejuice. I need someone to
Sure.
further my opinion with other movies that are going to make a sequel. Like, I do not think if they touch Back to the Future, I'm gonna literally
know.
like this to their little necks. I'm gonna wring them out.
No one wants that.
No one wants it. But like, even this, when they were saying they're gonna make a second Beetlejuice called Beetlejuice, I was like, please don't touch it. It's so good. I'm glad they brought everybody back, but I was also like, I'm just afraid. I'm afraid
Yeah.
of what you're gonna do
Yeah.
to it. And I think it was a successful sequel. I think a sequel entirely is different than what we want from a sequel is entirely different than what we got with Beetlejuice, if that makes sense. I think a sequel only needs to rely on its original material a little bit. It needs to
Yes.
equally be distributed.
Yeah.
But I don't think those same rules apply to Beetlejuice.
Right. And I appreciate that it didn't try to like upend the formula too much. There was no like Beetlejuice has been made into a human again. And
Yeah.
we got to send him back to the afterlife or something weird like that. Or like Beetlejuice and Lydia swap places and now she's the demon and he's the little girl. You know, like I don't need that nonsense, right?
Yeah.
I don't want like that kind of mess in a sequel like this. I just kind of want the same things. Now, do you feel that the third act being a wedding again, is that too much of repeating something you already did? You know, the
Yeah.
use of like the wedding again, the use of a song, right? Instead of like Deo, right?
Yeah,
It was the
yeah.
What's the name of the song? Mulholland or
It's MacArthur Park.
MacArthur Park.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I thought, I mean,
Mulholland Drive.
Mulholland Drive.
No,
Mulholland
it's a
Drive.
movie.
I thought it was a great sequence, you know, and I think that really like elevated that beyond like the fact that it was just like another wedding,
Sure.
and also it didn't feel like they were gonna marry. I don't know. It was just like, for me, I was like,
You know
oh,
it's not gonna
did it
happen,
again.
right?
Yeah.
But like the red dress comes back. Do
Yeah,
you like
sure,
that, or
yeah.
is that
I
too
love
much
it.
repeating?
Well, to be fair, that's the only thing they like actually copied to a T from the original script.
Sure.
Everything else was different. They didn't even have the football players this time. They just had a coach with a javelin through their neck.
Yeah.
Instead of using the athletes, they used the coach this time, which is one of my favorite lines from the original one. I don't think our coach. Where's our coach? Your coach survived. What made you think? Juno was maybe my favorite character from the original movie. But I was like, I think that's the only part of that movie that they took for a T from the original film.
Yeah.
But it worked so well because the sequence was so nice, and instead of doing like Deo, they did MacArthur Park.
And it went long,
it was
too.
but
Really long,
I think
and in a great way.
Tim
Yeah.
Burton loves dance sequences since
Sure.
Wednesday. I think
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna make them choreograph dance. But now I'm honestly expecting it in the third one. I want it again. I genuinely do. I'm
You
like,
think they'll do a third one?
I'm like, do another wedding scene.
Okay.
Do another wedding scene, and it said, and because he learned, what I did like is that Beetlejuice learned from the last time. He said it's in the contract.
Yeah.
He was like, no one's saying Beetlejuice because it's in the contract this
Yeah.
time, unlike the first movie. And then he was like, oh, you're gonna send the sandworm after me? Pfft, I'm a matador now. Like I've done this before. So this time I wanted to be like, there's a little bit a step level higher. Maybe it does eat Lydia this time, or maybe it eats Astrid this time, or maybe he's like, you know what? I tried marrying Lydia. I'm just gonna take her mom from the dead and marry Delia. Like, how about that?
Right, yeah.
I do like that. You know, they established that Beetlejuice, right? He has the thing with his ex-wife or whatever. Marriage is his thing.
Yeah, it's his
right,
thing,
and he knows it's his one way out. But it's also like it's his albatross. It's always following him. You know, he wants to get married, but he's also clearly afraid of marriage, right? It's what he fears. So I kind of like that. This is his thing. Like, I'm just gonna try and run it, and I'm obsessed with Lydia because she's the one girl I could never get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Did you see that in the sequence where he was like, in the song where he's like, my other loves, or you're nothing like my loves? It showed Lydia, Dolores, and a dog.
Give me the
dog.
Frankenweenie, right?
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
this supposed to be like Frankenweenie?
I was like, give me the dog. I want the dog story next.
Yeah.
I want to know why.
Maybe he was a dog. Maybe his first life he was a dog.
Or he's just a gross demon.
Gross demon who was into dogs. I don't know.
Yeah, I think to both your guys' points, like the film is just referential enough to the first movie that it's not like, look, see, like remember all these things that you loved, right?
Yeah,
because the formula of it that we do that is like very subtle, which is that Beetlejuice is like not like the main character, and then this wedding beat at the end. Like that stuff, I think pays off really well in that amount of connective tissue. I do wonder if they do a third movie, how many people should come back at that point? Because now it's a different question. It's like, do we make Beetlejuice the main character? Is he still going to be a little bit more sidelined, you know?
I think it definitely would not come out for another 10 years.
Yeah.
Tim Burton loves doing that.
Yeah.
It's not just like Beetlejuice. Tim Burton, after Dumbo, was like, I'm not going to do a movie for a minute. Like, he takes
said he
years
was gonna
between
retire,
movies.
right? After Dumbo.
He always says he's gonna retire.
Sure, they
always do. And then here he is with Wednesday getting the second season. But also, again, it's been 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years between the first Wednesday and when they're releasing the second
that's
season.
true.
So I'm like, Tim Burton takes his time. He is not gonna come out with it for a long time. And I do think the writers will come up with like a story that is worthy of 10 years of waiting.
Yeah.
I'm nervous that it'll be a baby this time. There'll be like
Beetle
a baby.
Beetle Baby was so creepy.
I hated
that
Beetle
ending
Baby.
was
The ending,
whoa.
I was like, we're gonna see Jenna Ortega give birth, okay, and then
It was a baby.
Beetle Baby.
He did say, and I love that little callback. He was like, "You gotta love a dream sequence" during the like choreographed
I knew
dance.
something was. I was like, who gives birth in an operating theater? This is weird. The glass window. That's very strange. Yeah, very, very, very weird.
Yeah. There might
I
be
don't
a
know.
Beetle Baby.
My one concern if they wait 10 years, Michael Keaton, you know, he's not getting any younger, but like he was great.
They might
so
not.
good.
Funny.
I think the thing also is like Tim Burton does not need the money. Warner Brothers would love to do it because they
Sure.
just care about money.
Yeah.
But Tim Burton is probably like he is a good. I'm not trying to give him too many flowers, but Tim Burton is very good at being like, the story's been told.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I mean, what do you want out of a weird, quirky... And I love that he wasn't trying to create some mass lore with this movie.
Yeah,
It's just...
yeah. I mean, it's just more expansions on like a vision of the afterlife, you know, and that's it. Like the fact that there's a book that says like, you know, the recent manual guide for the recently deceased, right? It was in the first movie, but like it's not like it's like I want to know what's on every page.
Yeah,
of the book,
yeah,
but
we
I
wanna
don't
read
want
more
a
of the
movie
book.
to tell me
Yeah.
that book. You
Right.
know?
He said, "Look here, I'm gonna open one page of this book that you will see, and then that's it."
Yeah. Sandworm.
The sandworm and the Sith.
The scythe.
Yeah. It's so fun. It's so fun. And also, I think Tim Burton recognizes that, like, hey, at the end of the day, yeah, you guys want Beetlejuice. You also just want to see the afterlife and all these crazy people that died. Because I talked about it in my breakdown. That's the fun part that was really fun for me as a child. The first one was like watching the person that got bit by a snake and the snake's still attached to them, or like the woman that's cut in half clearly because of a bad magic trick. And then this one was like, here's entire immigration where you can guess all the people that have died. I guess in there, someone tweeted at me and was like, in that mess of people, you actually see the waiter that's head is on a plate from Corpse Bride.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see it,
fun.
but I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Also set up for Corpse Bride. I'm surprised I didn't see enough Corpse Bride in this movie.
I know. I thought they were gonna do it for a second. I was like, oh. And also, like, you know, to that point, something that we like have touched upon, but maybe not really celebrate as much on the stream right now. So much practical stuff.
Yes.
Right. So many
Especially,
practical set pieces
like,
that look so good.
I was talking to Jessica. This is my favorite Tim Burton movie since maybe Big Fish.
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd is good. I don't love Sweeney Todd.
I'm obsessed with it.
But his run on like the Alice in Wonderland movies and like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, his old Johnny Depp run, right? A lot of like visual effects.
Yeah.
That I think don't hold up well. And like he's trying to do some cool things, but like it didn't really feel as tactile as like a Burton film. And like I love in this movie, yes, so many practical things. The way when she sucks up a soul, the skin scrunches up, so gross and weird. I mean, we were talking about Danny DeVito. He was in it for 2 minutes, and like just the amount of work he's doing and the amount of work on his face. The fact that the dad had little piranhas,
just
still flapping and like all practical.
I like that even Charles Dietz was like, his larynx was that the
it was like
opening,
talking through his like bitten off head. All that was so fun and weird and practical.
That's where, to be frank, that's where that money was. Like that money was in making sure everyone had, and if you look so close in that, every single one of them has such a distinct, stupid costume. Even the radiation guy that had the like suit on and his face was melted. The mimes, I was like,
I mean, the woman running the call board, who's just a skeleton in a doctor's office. Like it worked. It was so great. It's so much better than a CG skeleton doing.
And I think part of that too is like it's the confidence of a director or any artist, right? Who says like, I know what this world is gonna look like, and like you just you're gonna have to trust that this is gonna play well because it's 100%. So consistent, right? Like the only maybe like obviously CG was the snakes that I
think the snakes and the faces getting sucked maybe looked a little CG,
but like everything else is just so consistent, and that's the thing with like any type of medium. If you can be like, I have a vision, and I'm gonna be very consistent in how I pull it off. That's definitely what I appreciate the most, and I think it's what works for audiences. Like 100%. Like when they try to mix like the CGI and practical stuff for Star Wars even, it's just like, I don't know, guys, like just commit to making a practical little alien guy.
Like they made little hallways with the floors and it was just like such a small little set. There's never a moment where they walk around a corner and you see the whole afterlife and there's volcanoes and none of that. It's just like very simple, good stuff that I liked.
I was talking to Brandon about it afterwards, and I was like, do you know how much fun Guillermo del Toro would have on this?
He would make some.
If I was like, I don't think, which is weird, I know that the fun fact, this is so crazy, you guys can look this up, Guillermo del Toro and James Cameron are friends because Guillermo del Toro's dad was taken hostage by a cartel, and James Cameron paid for that cartel to give his dad back. What? So James Cameron and Guillermo del Toro are very close friends. I learned this from James Cameron's Q&A, because you know he has to bring it up. You know James Cameron.
I would bring that up.
Well, not Guillermo del Toro, but James Cameron. I saw Guillermo del Toro's also Q&A, and he didn't bring it up. It was James Cameron's Q&A.
You should have asked the question at the Q&A.
James Cameron just mentioned in the Abyss Q&A. That has nothing to do with you.
I mean, I would believe that story if the cartel was camped out at that old nuclear dome where he shot the Abyss and he was like, I gotta get these guys out of here. I don't care what it costs.
I don't care what it costs. And then it just so happens that it's related to Guillermo del Toro.
And they're like, you just saved Guillermo del Toro's dad. He's like, I don't know who that is. I don't give a fuck.
Can I go go back to drowning my actors?
Can I try and kill Ed Harris, please?
Please.
I'm trying to kill Ed Harris, please.
But I was like, I know that those two are friends and tight, and I was like, ooh, if Guillermo del Toro and like Tim Burton just sat down for like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all would make such weird creatures.
Guillermo del Toro would make a horror film about the
They should, if they could just merge, but I understand. I don't think they could ever actually merge because these are two titans for practicals, and they're probably like, they would beef so hard.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro would be like, no, it has to have fingers for eyes.
Yeah.
Its antlers have to be hands. And then Tim Burton's like, I just want to make it have a big butt.
I think Guillermo del Toro would also bring maybe like a level of like heart and emotion that Tim Burton is
100%.
definitely capable of, but is not necessarily interested.
Yeah,
in,
100%. I just
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god. I know it costs so much money, but if there was ever a time where you can make one director do the art style of another director, I would switch those two immediately. I'd be
Okay.
like, here's Tim Burton's script, here's Guillermo del Toro's script.
Go make
How are
the
you guys
same
both gonna
movie.
do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. yeah.
Could you imagine
Yeah, that'd
Tim
be
Burton
really
doing Pan's Labyrinth? That would be the most weird whimsy world. It would be horrible. I'd be like, there's a war going on. And he's like,
Yeah.
Can I ask how you both feel about the Maitlands not being in this film? They kind of get a throwaway line of like, oh, we found a way and we got him to the other side.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like the heart, you know, those two characters are certainly the most heart in the first movie.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, when I still think about as a kid, it freaked me out when Gina Davis is getting like. She's wasting away and like turning it in the wedding dress, right? They didn't do that in it, right? They kind of put him away. I didn't mind that they weren't there. I kind of liked that it was like not about the Maitlands. It was like we solved that. Don't worry about it. They even say like, well, that was convenient.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Would you rather have had them in the film?
No, but this is also coming from me who had to break it down, so I watched a bunch of interviews, and the reason why they're not in there is pretty stupid. But also, it's not stupid. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. You already have 12 new characters. Might as well not bring in 2 just old people.
Who you would have to like de-age?
Well, and that was the whole thing. Tim
because
Burton,
they're ghosts. They're not aging, right?
Tim Burton was like, their story was told. I don't want to check any boxes, which is true. They did not actually check a lot of boxes. It was just that wedding. But the actual writers were like, you'd have to make them look 35, which is impossible.
And like, it's sweet how the first movie ends, and like, this movie is basically saying, yeah, we had a happy life together. We got him to cross over to the other side.
Yeah.
Boom, we're done.
I didn't need them in there, but it also, I don't know what degree Tim Burton wrote the original, the first one, but I'm like, I could see him, if he had any hand in it, being like, yeah, let's give it some heart, and it's been 30 years. It's like Quentin Tarantino. He does not write the same way as he did 30 years ago. So Tim Burton, off of a broken heart, is like, no love in this movie. No love in this movie. I hate love.
Give me Tim Burton's.
No marriages. No marriages.
Marriages end.
They don't last.
Your ex-wife wants to suck your soul out of your
You guys sign a contract, a prenup. Helena.
Someone always finds a loophole.
I had to build 2 houses next to each other, and I had the crazy house, and she had the pretty house. They had 2 houses connected by a tunnel. Insane.
That's how you know your marriage is kind of like, you know, maybe we should just split up, you know?
Maybe, yeah. I will say I didn't mind that the Maitlands weren't in it. I think, and this goes back to like stuff I've been mentioning throughout the episode, I do think like what their characters served in that movie, I would have wanted that, right? Like a more central, like these people have a problem, this other central human character has a problem. How do we work together, right? Between this communication of like life and death to like solve this issue, right? But obviously the first one's much more confined. It's like, we don't want to sell this house.
Right, they barely leave the house in the first movie, right? Like
this one, everyone's got a problem.
Yeah,
everyone's got to solve it. You know, Beetlejuice has got a problem. But
I agree. I still agree though. I kind of wanted that little love heart. I think it was, and I think it was there for Astrid and the dad. It just wasn't, executed as well. Because it was as soon as they got up there, it was like, Mom, I forgive you. Okay, well I gotta go get married. And I was like, oh wait, no, this could have been a little bit longer, and it would have been nice.
Yeah, they maybe needed one more scene or something together.
I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it, but I get it. Also, in the original, when you think about it, there were so many like not grounded, but like voice of reason characters, or just at least like not silly. Like Juno itself was not a silly character. This woman was smoking with a hole in her neck. That was like the silliest thing she did, and even then she was like, I'm no business. Like I'm not playing around.
Yeah, because I think like I really love that idea that, you know, Lydia can never see her ex-husband.
I love
ghost,
it.
Right? one of my favorite movies, like a Wes Anderson movie, Darjeeling Limited, they like stopped the whole movie to do a flashback to show like basically the day before a funeral they're supposed to attend. Doing something like that could have been really interesting in the movie, but like would be tonally so weird for something that's so fun, right?
Yeah.
Because the first movie is kind of a miracle in the sense that it is really tragic, but it's so fun. So fun. Just like the story of it is tragic, right? And this one is a little bit like, with everything going on, it's like, oh, well, there's lots of things, but how do we can hit these touchstones that will be like, yeah, that worked, but maybe without the same amount of depth. Yeah.
Well, you go through a divorce with Helena Bonham Carter, and then you come talk to us.
All right, Helena, come on the show. We're getting married.
Oh my God, I would marry you in
then
a heartbeat.
divorce.
I think everybody would.
Do we have any questions from the chat we should get to?
Oh yeah, we have a few. Lots of people who have seen the movie have enjoyed it for sure. And some people also like sharing in the agreement with criticism stuff. Let's see. Captain Cannabis asking, do you think Danny DeVito being a janitor was a reference to his best friend Charlie and from Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
That, you know what?
Charlie!
I agree 100% wholeheartedly, because there's no way they're gonna have Maura Rose be Delia Dietz as well. Like that is so funny, that comparison. I hope Tim Burton watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I mean, when he chugs the Drano, right? It was giving me when Frank chugs the beer.
Yeah, when he says
Swallows it and then barfs it back up.
when he says toots to Dolores.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is definitely Danny DeVito's
It's
character.
giving Frank. It's giving
That's
Frank.
actually a very fun comparison.
Yeah.
Also, it says like 5th movie working with Tim Burton.
Oh,
So
yeah.
at this point,
Yeah.
Tim Burton's like, look, can you just be this character? And then go into Delia and being like, Catherine Harrow, can you play your character
Yeah.
from Schitt's Creek? Who would Willem Dafoe have been? I guess his character from the Emma Stone movie, where he's also kind of a monster in the face.
Poor Things.
Yeah, Poor
It
Things.
was giving that. It was kind of giving like Life Aquatic
That's
a
what I
little
was
bit.
gonna
Oh,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was having so much.
You know, maybe
He's having so
maybe
much
Streets of Fire, giving a little Streets
Oh
of Fire.
my God! Yeah, bring back to one of his first roles. Hey, if you haven't watched Streets of Fire, watch
Streets of Fire.
If you haven't watched Boondock Saints, watch Boondock Saints.
All of
It's the exact same character Willem Dafoe is playing.
Ryan Painter and I think I am Iron Man 10 and of course other people in the Twitch chat asking, how fleshy was
knew this was
Beetlejuice?
coming.
Beetlejuice.
If Dolores was not in it, it would not be fleshy at all.
Oh damn.
Monica Bellucci, that flesh.
That
Flesh.
flesh.
She was sucking that flesh. she no pun intended. Literally, she was.
No, this movie.
She
I
was-
think this movie is incredibly fleshy.
Yeah.
There's so much meat on
Lots of
practical meat on the bone.
Yeah. That's stop motion sandworm. Stop
Yeah.
motion sequence of Charles dying.
Yeah,
Great.
intense.
Yeah.
I liked the sandworm sequence, how it like turned weirdly and they shut the door.
Yeah.
I love
That
that.
whole thing was
I
very
loved
interesting. It was a
Yeah.
weird way of looking at it, but
Yeah.
it was I don't know. It was,
That we talked about it. That line of her being like, "Look, we must
we
be on
must be on a
Saturn's
moon. I was like, okay, wait a second. That's the first thing you
I'm not
think?
trying to be that person, but me, who's addicted to justifications in film, would write that sentence down
Yeah.
on the script. And then I wouldn't have noticed how awkward it was until I saw the movie afterwards. I'd be
Yeah.
like, damn, that line came out of nowhere. For no reason, unless of course there is like a subreddit to Beetlejuice that have been arguing since day one
About
where the
yeah.
sandworm planet is. Because I was like, out of every question people have for Beetlejuice, I don't think it was where the sandworm planet is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A fun little anecdote, but like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. I know. I mean, they just got to bring back some spice and they'll be cooking. You know?
Bring back a little bit of spice.
Oh my god.
I saw
Beetlejuice
Arrakis.
definitely does spice.
Yeah. All right, last question here. There's a lot of characters in this movie and a lot of different relationships. I'm Iron Man 10 asking, how many tiny kisses did Beetlejuice give?
Oh, I don't think he gives tiny kisses. He
gives big
old
kisses.
wet kisses.
Give
right?
me a question that makes sense. I'm tired
Jessica doesn't know
of
the lore.
answering your weird law questions.
Oh, boy.
I did.
And I answer them wrong every time. When you ask fleshy, I'm gonna tell you what body part I saw. That's what.
The flesh.
House of the Dragon was very fleshy. Dong was hung.
Yeah, Beetlejuice does not hang dong in his
I
film.
wish. Michael Keaton actually had that in his contract. No nude
He did
scenes.
spill his guts though, which I did like.
I did like. Do you remember that line where his little baby's nibbling on her leg and he goes,
God.
"He's a leg man just like me."
Oh yeah!
Oh, God.
Well, don't you remember in the first one when he's like waiting in the
Yeah, I
waiting
put
room
it
in the leg?
It's in the breakdown.
Yeah,
I put it in there. He's touching that leg. He is a leg man. He's been a leg.
leg man.
I will say Tim Burton said, I didn't want to watch any of the original film while working on this because I didn't want to have that, I need to touch this, I need to do on this.
Do you think he had the idea for the wedding ending? He's like, that's a great idea for an ending.
He just completely
I can't believe I just thought about that.
Well, there's pieces where I'm like, the leg thing, I bet it's just Tim Burton being like, I'm just a leg man.
Yeah, ask Helena. I'm sure he's a leg man.
Oh, he is a leg freak. This is a side note that has nothing to do with this. You know who else is a leg little freak? Jeff Goldblum. He on Hot Ones. Go watch Jeff Goldblum's Hot Ones. When he talks about his wife, he goes, she takes off her tennis shoe, and I look at her Achilles.
Oh,
and he's
no.
freak about an Achilles and an ankle.
He's got a younger wife, doesn't he?
Does he? No, I think she's like later 40s or mid 40s.
Yeah, but he's 100.
No, 100%. I see what you're saying.
Math still goes up.
But it's not the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, we don't speak about them.
It's not a Beetlejuice Lydia Deed situation.
No,
it's not
that.
the 600 year. Actually, it is 600 year.
Oh no.
He is a leg man. So if you want a Jeff Goldblum, but you don't have the legs, honeys, maybe you gotta pass. And that's what he does. That's what he does in the interview. He goes, the leg, it's so good.
Well, it's just like a.
I was like, Army Hammer.
So long.
Chewing on his leg. So long.
Well, I think that's enough talking about Beetlejuice.
Go watch it.
Go
watch it. This isn't gonna. The last review I was on, which is very sad to say this, I think was Twisters, and I didn't get to see the movie. And we were with you and John, it was very mixed about whether or not to go see it. It was like, go see it high,
What?
go see it this.
No.
You and John were both beefing about whether or not to see it. I will say,
Brandon's
I think
big to see it.
here,
Big to see Twisters.
three of us,
Yeah.
go see Beetlejuice.
This is like a weird comedy that they don't make anymore.
Yeah.
Don't make it anymore.
They should try weird stuff like this.
It might inspire people to start making horror movies like this. I think the closest we get in horror movies like this is like Terrifier, which is just disgusting.
I'm not. I'm excited for Y2K, right? Which looks like it hasn't come out yet. It's gonna be directed by Kyle Mooney, and it's like a pastiche of late 90s, early 2000s horror movies set around Y2K where the machines go crazy or something.
Starring Rachel Zegler.
Yeah, starring Rachel Zegler.
Is she talking shit about it? She's like, doomed.
Yeah, fun, weird movies like this.
Yeah.
We should support them.
I love it.
And I know this is based on IP.
Right.
And whatever, but old IP. It's weird.
Big money.
It's weird. Right. That's it for us today. Make sure to subscribe to the Breakroom channel right here on YouTube and give us a follow on Twitch, where we do these videos live. Follow all our social channels at Breakroom NR, Twitter, Threads,
all the
Twitch,
places.
X, wherever you find it. We'll catch you next time. Late SKS. Goodbye.
Bye. Jessica, wave. Jessica, wave.
Wave, Jessica, wave.
Wave, Jordan.